Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stories from the Earth. I am Jennifer. So before we start our interview, I just like to say briefly why I'm doing these interviews. And so the practice of herbalism is as diverse and dynamic as each individual herb and each individual herbalist. There are many ways to be an herbalist and many ways to interact with the plant world. Each herbalist takes their own path, and the series explores the many ways to be an herbalist and who an herbalist is, as well as a discussion on herbalism today and where it might be going in the future. So today we're going to be talking about forest farming, ginseng, goldenseal, and this idea of stewardship, plus more. And I'd like to welcome Benjamin Kitchen to our discussion. And hello, Roman Biscotti, some people in the chat. Hello, Kitty. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. Hi, welcome. So, all right. Hi.
Hey.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good.
Great.
So we've got a couple people watching us today.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to start off with a first question. I guess two questions.
Right.
Tell us a bit about yourself, and then also describe how you got interested in herbalism, and then what sparked this interest. What prompted you to go and want to learn?
Okay.
And be involved.
Right. Yeah, I grew up actually right outside of New York City, oddly enough, 30 miles outside of Manhattan, but it was in the woods, and me and my brother, we spent all our time in the woods. And then at age 17, I actually ran away from home and met an Indian medicine man in Vermont. And I served a 3-year apprenticeship with him. So
oh, wow.
I was the universe kind of made me into an herbalist. I don't think I had any choice. It's just kind of happened.
I don't think that's a normal story of what happens.
Yeah, it is a bit atypical. Yeah, it's not, most people don't go that route. And but in any case, that's the way it worked out. And that was in 1974 to 1976. And I met another herbalist in Georgia who was really, I didn't spend a lot of time with him, but he was a man named Charles White, and he was really knowledgeable. And then, of course, I read a lot of books and spent a lot of time in the woods. Let's see, it all started back in the 1970s, and the changes I've seen over the years are pretty amazing in the woods too. It's yeah, it's hard to even imagine that, just the difference now. Like, one thing is that the ginseng berries heads aren't as big now. So anyways, when I look back then, it just seems so long ago. And then I also had a business where my uncle he made yogurt, and he sold it in New York City to Fairway and Balducci's, and that was 1983 and 84, and I sold fiddleheads and ramps and peppermint, spearmint, oregano. I was selling herbs in New York City, and I got a phone interview with Gourmet Magazine. I don't think they ever printed anything, but that was way back in the day before that type of market was popular. I kind of did that on my own.
That's real cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I walk through the woods now and I see those ferns, and it's like, oh my God, that's the ferns that I used to gather. I think they grow much more prolifically in the north. So I think around here you only find them scattered, whereas up north there's literally acres of them. So, but it's the same fern. It gets you can see it now, the cinnamon fern, I guess is the name. It has the big seed stalk. a brown seed stalk. So that there was that, and then and I started to grow ginseng and Goldenseal. Started to grow ginseng in, let's see, probably the late 1980s, mid 80s, and then I started to grow Goldenseal in probably the mid 90s. So, but my involvement overall has been, right at about 45 years, and half of that's been with cultivation. And thing about ginseng that you hear about it, it is extremely difficult to grow. And God knows everybody I've ever met made mistakes with it. It's extremely difficult to understand it. Even after all these years, it still baffles me. So, but I'm starting to get a handle on it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to come back to that. We're going to talk, I want to talk in length about ginseng, Goldenseal, and these, they're called Woodland botanicals.
I guess I got sidetracked.
No, that's okay. That is totally fine.
Yeah, as far as my education, I will say that the Indian herbalist that taught me, he didn't say much. He taught by example, and he would take me places and he wouldn't say anything at all. And he left me to figure it out through nonverbal. It was all about example. And I mean, it literally took me 10 years after the last time I saw him to understand what he meant. So I think that's why it stuck with me through the years, because it took so long to even understand what he was trying to convey to me, and his generosity toward me was just, he was generous to me, but in a way that was, he didn't say much, it was just, he showed me stuff, and just, it wasn't words. It was just like, here we are, look at this, and that was just such a different way to share something with somebody. So it's always stuck with me over the years.
Yeah.
And, it got me interested in the woods. You just have to go to rich woods. There are woods. It's all about biological diversity. And that's pretty much what he was teaching, was you got to seek out biological diversity. You got to know where to go where things are diverse. So once you get into that train of thought, then you can't stay away, because the woods are so interesting. So that's kind of what got me hooked, is to go in the jaw-dropping woods. And, you never, like, I'll tell you something I saw the other day that I never would have thought of is, I found a mimosa tree that's actually 50 feet tall, and it's like timber sized. It's literally that big around. And,
wow.
It actually had ginseng under it. And so that gives you an example of, if you'd have told me the day before I saw that, I would have told you were crazy. There's no way that existed. And yet there it was. So that's kind of, I guess you could say that, that teacher sparked my interest in the woods. And, I still am interested in what's out there.
That's, I think that, when I don't know, we come at things nowadays from such like a book learning head, like talking sort of way, and we just don't sort of sit and like do a lot of listening and looking and observing. So that's a really, that's a I think but I think that's really important when it comes to herbs, because I just
yeah, it's the oral tradition. It's as much as I love books and I collect herb books, I will say that the most important information I ever got was strictly through oral tradition. The most valuable things I know about stewardship are through the oral tradition. And then, I would say, and even there's some that I saw later in writing and some that I've never seen in writing. And that's the funny thing about that oral stuff, is that you may never see certain things in a book, and yet they're out there. Like a good example is pine straw. I met a ginseng grower from Georgia, and he said, that was a woman, she said, use pine straw. And I figured out what it was, is the reason pine straw is good is because squirrels don't like it. They do not like pine straw. And I guarantee you, if you want to find that in a book, you show me the book. I've yet to see that in print. I have never, ever seen that in a book, you know? So, I mean, that's just one example of stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew more about like the history of like herbalism, and that's one of the things that I was thinking about. Like, I really need to get a hold of like learn more about that, and I but my understanding of it is it was probably a lot more oral and passed along that way, like a lot of other knowledges, and I think we've lost a lot of that. So sort of like before the internet was the internet.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of real.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. And that's one thing that, you know, way back then, there were no cameras, well, there were cameras, but, you know, I didn't record a lot of that. It's all in my head. You know, I wished I'd had a cell phone back then, but, you know, we didn't have them. So, I mean, you know, it's, but my memory is very vivid of what happened back then. So, anyways.
I mean, I would have loved to have had an education like that, you know, someone to just like, you know, you know, I did some school, but, you know, I was really looking for an apprenticeship, which I haven't quite been able to find one yet in sort of like an old style, form, someone to just sort of like, you know, really teach me what they know.
Yeah, I think the time period when I was there, you know, it was in the mid 70s, and a lot of that type stuff was fading out then. You know, like the medicine shows were gone by the 1970s, and that I think 10 years later that I couldn't have done that. I got there right at the end of sort of an era of, I don't know how to describe it, but that, you know, my teacher was old school. He was from the way back, you know, he was from way back. So, and he was very old at the time too. So I was very fortunate, you know, to run across him at that time. He'd been in the woods 50 years. So, but I think probably you'd be hard pressed to find people like that today. It'd be more difficult. So, you know, I was lucky to catch that. It's like the last wave of something changed after that. The world changed. There's still people, you know, there are people around, but I guess part of it is he just went back to a certain era, you know, that I don't know.
That's Elaine from chat is saying oral tradition. And she also said that it's so sad that we're losing our own tradition. I think we've lost a lot, yeah, for sure. But that's awesome that he just said, "Hey, you."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's really amazing. That's sort of like my herbal, like, when I think about being educated in herbalism, that's what I think about that I'd like. But I think people are sort of trying to do a little bit of a similar thing, but, you know, it's sort of a little more, you know, we've got this modern things going on that.
Right. Where you can Google the pictures and all that. And
yeah.
It's true. And, you know, I will say that I'm hard-headed. I collect herb books and I have all the photographs, and it's very rare that I will Google a picture. I want to find out the hard way, you know. I mean, I don't know what it is. I'm just old-fashioned. But there's things out in the woods, you know, that still are baffling to me. Like a good example, I can't believe I didn't notice this, but it's a type of mint. It's called horse balm, and I mean, the leaves are literally that big. They're as big as.
Oh my gosh.
They're bigger than that cup you're drinking out of. But anyways, there's acres and acres of it, and it's weird. You crush it, it doesn't smell like anything, and then a minute goes by, and all of a sudden it'll smell like mint. And I mean, there are literally train car loads of this stuff. It's covered in the forest floor, 3 feet tall.
It's in a mint.
It grows in the woods. It grows in the woods, in rich woods. And it's just, I'm sure you have it around where you are too. It's flowering right now, and it has kind of yellowish, whitish flowers, and the leaves are really coarse. They're huge and they're thick, and they're like that big, literally. And they're, and it's got a square stem like mint's supposed to have and all that. And but I'd seen it for years and thought to myself, oh, that's odd. I thought it might have been nettle, but it's not. We also have the stinging nettle. It looks somewhat, not the stinging nettle. It looks somewhat similar to wood nettle, but it's not. It's a mint. So
that's mint is like one of my favorite plants. I really like the apple mint because it's got the big fuzzy leaves and stuff.
I love that. Yeah.
I think I would go insane to see a mint with like a huge leaf, and I would be like very happy.
It's kind of weird though. It's kind of has an industrial smell to it, but it's still mint. I haven't made tea out of it yet, but we used to get apple mint years ago. It would grow around the old farmhouses where you'd have caraway, horseradish, hops, and apple mint. You know, they were the colonial herbs from New England. Which it's kind of backwards too, because as cold as it gets in New England, really the diversity up there it's pretty rich. I mean, in spite of being so cold, so it's pretty crazy. And down here, of course, we never had glaciers, so the woods are about 2 million years old, so they've had a little while to do stuff. So, and I think there's 150 kinds of trees in North Carolina, so that's always fun thing to struggle with.
So if anyone doesn't know, we're both in North Carolina, and it's an incredibly biodiverse area because the glaciers didn't come down far enough so that all the foliage that was there back then is still there, and that's why that's why we have so many plants. So if you want to like do some herbalism, this is a really great area. So anyway, just on an aside.
Diversity, and that it goes back to the whole thing with education too, because it's so biodiverse. I feel like I'll never stop learning. There's always something new to learn, because it is so diverse. So it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. I'm still a student. I'm constantly every day. It's like, what's that? I mean, I have that happen all the time. I mean, and there's some stuff that's hard to identify. Some stuff will drive you crazy. I mean, I don't know. There's stuff I have been unable to identify. So just,
I mean, I'm assuming it's sort of almost like the ocean where like, there's fish under there that we, haven't quite discovered yet because it goes so deep. And, I do too every year, there's a different plant that, that sort of pops up.
Yeah. Just the ferns alone are mind-boggling. I mean, the diversity of ferns is crazy. I feel like I should know more of them. I probably know 6 out of a dozen that I should know. I just figured out the New York fern the other day, and then of course there's maidenhair, Christmas fern, the royal fern is a good one. But there's just the ferns alone, and there's some ones that that are pretty rare. We do have rare ferns around here, so there's the biodiversity is just huge around here. It's it has a lot to do with how far you are above sea level too. I'm 1,900 feet above sea level. You might be a little higher than me. You're probably more in the 2,000s there. You might be 2,500 or something.
Right, because you're outside of Asheville. Although
I'm kind of in the foothills. Even though I can, in the winter time, I can through the trees I can see a 5,000-foot mountain from my yard. So, I mean, I'm near big mountains, but I'm not. By being 1,900 feet, that's kind of a good height because it's low but not too low. I mean, I still have cool weather. So, anyways, but Asheville's it's a great place. Well, I think it's a known fact that Western North Carolina is the best place in the world to grow medicinal herbs because of the climate, the biodiversity, and also too just people like Janine Davis and all the labs and stuff like that. It's a great place for that. So Janine
Davis works with I don't know if she works for or with, But either way, from North Carolina State University, and they do a lot for everyone in chat. They do a lot of research here. We've got like a research station, and then we've got like just the reason why I'm able to speak to so many local herbalists is because we have so many in this area, and we've got like 6. I don't know. We've got a bunch of herb schools, and so it's just a whole like.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a very dense herbal area, and I just
Right.
you know, my family's from New York, so we just happened to move over in this area. And
Right.
when I was 9, so I had no idea that I would be interested or do anything of this.
Yeah.
So and we had a 3.5 acres, so it was small, but
Right.
you know, but we still had, you know, plenty of medicinals on it, and so
I think here too, the like I live near Cleveland, Tennessee, and that's one of the major locations in the Southeast for commercial herb buyers. You know, I've met them at conferences and things, and so between there, Chattanooga and Asheville, it's I've literally gone out in the woods and seen sassafras trees that were harvested, cut off, you know, because people were harvesting. It's a huge thing around here, harvesting of medicinal. I mean, it's going on, and there are people buying them. It's huge here. So
yeah, you just
and even Tennessee might even be more so than North Carolina. Tennessee is really into medicinal herbs.
well,
commercial.
Asheville used to have an herb market. We used to have like a herb market, like a mile or so from my house. It's some historical. There's just like a plaque on a walking trail, but it's like herb market, and I was like, you know, and I wish we had one like that, you know, like you see in like India and all those, some of those other places, all the spices and stuff in the barrels, and you're just like, that would be so cool. Everyone come and bring their, you know, the herbs. But anyway.
Well, the closest I came is when I took them to New York City. I had my little when I did that, and I've done farmers markets before in the past, and I might in the future. It's just, and I probably would have had I would have tried to get interns here if it wasn't for all the crazy stuff going on. But that's one thing about Goldenseal that is extremely easy to work with. You can transplant it any time of year, and I've got tens of thousands of seedlings. I started from seed, and I'm trying to replace everything I have with seedlings only. And then the ginseng is a little different. It's more difficult to work with. You can only handle it when it's dormant, and you have to spray it. Spray with copper, liquid copper. It's organic. But I would have had interns here if it hadn't been for everything. So, and the thing about Goldenseal is it's all winter. I'm going to divide it up and keep increasing it. So,
hopefully, soon that will, at some point, you know, we will get out of like this crazy mess. Okay,
true.
Let's back up. So tell everyone, because we're talking about ginseng and Goldenseal, and there's of course other plants, but these are the two that you mostly work with. What is like a woodland botanical, and why are they why are they different than sort of like your dandelion or your, you know, maybe more common herbs that sort of grow in lawns and other places?
Yeah, they tend to be more like bitter medicinal types. So you have yellowroot and cohosh and all those things. It's although there are food crops in the woods, like I recently realized you can actually eat redbud flowers. They're edible. I didn't know that. But what makes woodland medicinals different? I'm not sure. That's they tend to not be aromatic. Maybe they're more just with bitter principle. Trying to think of the ones around here. Like we have yellowroot. There's a lot of that, and wild geranium. We've got just tons of that. There's literally acres of. We have entire mountainsides covered in wild geranium. I'm trying to think of what else. St. John's cross.
I guess a better way to phrase the question is just just like um
I guess what I could say is that the reason I'm into woodland herbs because there's very little open land here. It's almost all forested, so that's kind of where you just go with what's there. You know, yeah, there we have so little open land here. It's astonishing. It's almost completely wooded, so it's kind of, you know, that's kind of what part of it, I guess. Once I moved here, I was already into woodland herbs. It's like, well, that's handy because there's nothing but woods.
right.
So
Going with the idea of like learning what's in your backyard. So
yeah. Well, I will say that the open areas are very interesting. And one plant that grows around here that's astonishing is there's so much of it is it's the green-headed coneflower. That stuff grows 10 feet tall, and there's acres and acres of that stuff. There's acres and acres of that. Oh my God! And it's kind of like the poor cousin of the purple coneflower. And I've often thought to myself, golly, if you could find a use for that, it literally grows 10 feet tall. It's just a entire meadow covered in it. I mean,
the purple coneflower is also called echinacea. So if you haven't heard about that term, everyone has probably heard of echinacea.
You've got that where you live. I bet you have it where you live.
Oh yeah, in everyone's yard. Everyone grows it. A lot of people grow
the green coneflower. It's extremely common, and it's like I said, it's kind of like the poor relation of the purple coneflower, which I think the purple coneflower is the rarest flower in Georgia. It's the rarest wildflower in Georgia. It only occurs in one county, in Floyd County, and then it's more common in Central Tennessee, and then of course out west they harvest it commercially. So, but I've often wondered.
So I do have a question from chat. How would you define forest gardening?
Forest gardening?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Okay, like for instance with ginseng, if you take a rototiller in the woods and grow ginseng, you're opening up Pandora's box because you're going to have to spray. The reason being is that if you just go throw the seed down and rake some leaves over it and mush it in the ground a little, it'll be fine, and keep the spacing wide. So that ginseng is the only plant I know of that's like that. Okay, so what I've done is I have one zone where I rototill stuff, and then I have a completely distinct area where it's all wild and there's no tilling at all. And it took me a while to get to that point. I realized you had to separate them. And then there are places in the woods that are so mellow. I was out in the woods today and yesterday, and the soil is already pretty much loose anyway, and you don't even have to do anything. So really, I guess the thing about forest farming is there's so many different conditions in the woods, all the way from, I'll give you an example, my backyard, the soil is 400 pounds per acre calcium, which is absolutely horrible. You got to have at least 1,100 pounds per acre. And so nothing's going to grow in that. And then I can walk down to the bottom of the mountain and it's, insanely rich soil, So it depends on where you are in the forest with gardening. I mean, you may not have to do anything. You may just be able to just stick a seed in the ground.
So you definitely want to do some like pH testing and some soil, find out the mineral content and everything.
Right.
So that
you can also use the indicator plants as well.
Okay.
As they call them, the pointer plants. What they call the xeric woods. Those are dry. It's red oak and hickory, and there's not much on the forest floor. And then you got the masic. And the funny thing is, I've noticed the richer the woods are, the nicest woods I know of right now, and there's essentially no leaf mulch at all. It's bare dirt. And the reason is that in the richest woods, the tree leaves are all pretty much small, and they decompose quickly. And so that's the funny thing is the woods that have the most diversity, they won't even have leaf litter hardly. It'll be because it just decomposes so quickly, and the cycle's quicker. And then you go in the woods that have the big coarse oak leaves, which I've got those, plenty of them, and it takes that oak leaf 3 years to decompose. It just lays there. So, you know, it's kind of common sense, right? You want to go to the area where the tree leaves are tiny and they mush up and decompose quickly. And I mean, that's not to say rich things can't grow under oak trees, but it's less conducive to it. You know, I guess the whole cycle is slower, you know, of the leaves decomposing. So,
okay. So, and I know you've, I know that there's also, there's also some indicators of where to plant, where you can find ginseng and goldenseal as well.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Although those can be misleading because pretty much I would say 80% of the ginseng habitat in this country has been stripped clean with nothing left. And the other 20% is hanging on. So that to say that, oh yeah, that's ginseng habitat, you could play a dirty trick on somebody because they could walk for a week and not see any, and they might be going through the most lush woods in the world. So it's to say that, yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing because there's so much habitat that doesn't have it that should
have it.
Oh my God, it's endless and endless. And you can go walk along and see none for 5 miles, and you might see 30 of them in an area the size of a dinner plate. It grows the chipmunks planet, and it grows watered up. So it's yeah, not only is it rare, but it's also doesn't pay attention to rhyme and reason. It's totally just willy-nilly, you know. You might see a lot in one place and none there, you know, and just it's crazy.
Is this because of people over wildcrafting it, or
actually that's something that
any other reason?
Yeah, and I've struggled with that, what it really is, and I've come to realize just this year that there's a lot of sustainable harvest in this area. There's some horrible poaching, but the big thing is the deer predation is really getting worse here. And I saw a 3-prong recently, and it had none of the foliage was there. It had the 3 stems coming up. It had the berry stalk, and there's absolutely not a single leaf on it, and that's obviously deer. And supposedly they only eat the adult ones that are more like up close to your knees or whatever. But so the deal is if they eat it in May for 2 years in a row, they'll kill it. If they eat it in August, they're doing it a favor. Anytime after July, it'll make the bud in July. What I do is I start cutting the tops on wild ginseng in July, and at the end of July and August. So the thing with the deer predation is it's all a matter of when they eat it and how often. They could either help it or hurt it. And it also makes the understanding the population more difficult. Like I've got places that I have to go back to that I know had really big old ginseng, and I couldn't tell you honestly if it's going to come up next year or not. I have no way knowing until I go and look next spring. So I guess next spring I'll be a lot smarter, you know, but I have to wait. But yeah, the deer here, I've got, you know, 8-point bucks at my mailbox, and their deer are coming in here. They're I thought about putting up fence, but when it comes to deer, it's kind of I have to go 10 feet, so I haven't put it up yet as a result.
Let me see.
But I will say though that I've been planting the wild seeds, and I planted over 100 yesterday, and that's Charles White. He taught me that in Dalton, Georgia. He said, cut the tops after July. And when he said that, he was vehement. He almost grabbed me by the shirt collar and jerked me around, because that's the only way. That is the only way ginseng can survive. You've got to cut the tops starting in North Carolina on August 1st. And the reason being is, if you've ever tried to work with ginseng in the spring, it sends out these translucent hair roots, and you cannot move it. You can't work with it. And it grows incredibly fast in the spring. So by cutting the top in August, and now it's September, the plant will not be harmed in any way because it has such a big growth rate in the spring. It grows like crazy in the spring. And I used that method since he told me that in 1993, and it didn't quite kick in. I started using the top cutting method in 2006. And I will say after 14 years that it absolutely works. You can save ginseng populations by doing that. It's the only way. There is no other way to do it, barring shotgun and a fence. You got to cut the top off. It's astonishing how well that works. And yet You know, I mean, I seem to be out there. It's probably not a real popular technique, but I've been doing it, and it took me 4 or 5 years to realize how well it works. And it's not bulletproof. I mean, it isn't bulletproof because somebody could go out and dig it up in May when it first emerges. So you have to wait till the end of July, you know, and you know, it's just like anything in nature. It's all random. But
Yeah.
yesterday, I will say yesterday, I went out and I saw a patch of ginseng that I'd scooted up the hill. There were some parent plants down below. All I did is I picked the berries. I walked up the hill a couple 100 feet and planted them in some ferns, and they're still there. And it's just something as simple as that. Simply just scooting it over a little, because I think the people that do dig it, they tend to have beaten paths. They go certain places. So all you got to do is plant it somewhere a little weird or different, you know, off to the side a little, and
So they can't find it.
yeah, well, that's one thing. Like fallen trees are good. Briar thickets. That's contrary to what most people think. Logging doesn't always kill ginseng. It does. It can actually save it. I've seen logging save ginseng. You know, I've seen failed subdivisions where they bulldoze the roads and briar thickets, but there's ginseng in there, you know, and nobody's looking for it. Heck, why would they? You know, it's
Great.
golf courses. Yeah. You know, it's
so okay, so I have a linked, you did some videos for Virginia Tech, and I've linked them, and it talks a lot about the process of shoot, I think it's Goldenseal you're working with there, right?
Yeah, that's okay. The videos. Yeah.
Okay. So I was wondering if you could just briefly sort of walk us through, because we've been sort of talking about it, but I think I'd like to start sort of maybe at a point A, sort of like what your process is when you are like from seed to like mature plant.
Right.
What do you do? How do you, like, your growing process, your cultivating process? But just sort of like the highlights, so everyone can get sort of a picture of
right,
you know, this plant, and we can stick with ginseng because we've been talking about that. And I just also want to back up and say that the reason people are really interested in like poaching ginseng is because it sells for a whole lot of money, and it's a very slow growing plant. So it takes many years to get a good root. So anyway, that's why you might want to grow yours in a thicket of briars. Yeah. Okay, so yes, just like you have a seed, like from seed to.
Okay. Yeah, the seed usually ripens at the end of June, and just this year I should have sprayed it with citrus peel extract because the slugs or the snails actually probably ate 30% of my seed crop. So anyways, next year I'll spray organically. And then what you do is you just soak them in water till they look really nasty, and then you separate them, and of course they can never dry out, which is also true of ginseng seeds. And you store them in sand.
Where do you get your seeds from? Do you buy them? Do you cultivate them from?
Yeah, no, my original stock I got from Shoes Ginseng in Wisconsin, and I've gotten some from Randy Beavers in Dalton. But that's a good point because, yes, I have documentation for, you know, all my original planting stock is nursery grown. So I've got that original paperwork. And now that I'm moving on to growing the Goldenseal seedlings, that's pretty much ironclad proof, because if you go out and look at wild Goldenseal, it doesn't produce from seedlings that much. So,
okay.
And I've been getting into having tens of thousands of seedlings. So that's kind of my whole plan, is to shift over to all seedling growth. And which you can tell the difference too, because if you look at them side by side, the seedling will have a tapered taproot, and the rhizome cutting will have a bluntly cut rhizome. It'll clearly be I guess the whole thing is that, yeah, by having so many seedlings, it automatically implies that it had to be cultivated because you physically couldn't find that many in the woods. This Goldenseal, I mean, it does produce from seed in the woods, but not in the matter of thousands. It's not typically rotting. Actually, one of the ways Goldenseal reproduces is it rots. The plants get really old, and one plant will be next to another one, and it'll rot in the middle, and then you'll have two plants. And one way of propagating it too, which is really kind of comical. You can wait till it's really dry. I learned this from a man in Tennessee, and you go out there and you snatch it out of the ground, and whatever's left will grow. All the little side roots. You wait till it's dry. I mean, and it'll grow little baby plants wherever. I mean, Goldenseal is extremely easy to grow. It is so easy to grow. It's fun, and then it kind of makes up for ginseng, which is not easy to grow. So they kind of balance each other out.
So you have the seedling. What's the next step?
That's in the seed bed, and the seedlings of Goldenseal actually look nothing like Goldenseal. They have little round leaves, and I've got them out there now. I've got seed beds where they're just thick as just growing like the front lawn, which doesn't hurt them. And they're so tiny, you wait till they're 2 years old, and then I'll transplant them at age 2, and they'll get that true leaf on them. But it's all about just starting a seed bed. I would never direct seed Goldenseal. The reason being is that when you do, this is all rototilled in the woods, and that the tree roots tend to invade very quickly. So it's kind of really valuable real estate, which you can't squander on. You have to be super efficient, because any bed we were talking about forest gardening earlier. Any bed you fill in the woods, the trees are going to come in and say thank you for the snack. They're going to do that. So it's just a matter of, like, the maples are the worst. Hickory and oak are deep rooted. And that's something that, you might want to review. I'm trying to remember the general categories, but there are the deep rooted trees. And then I think maple and holly would be some of the worst surface feeders. Whereas, if you rototill next to a maple tree, 1 year later, that maple tree is going to own that chunk of dirt. It's going to be just solid maple roots. And yet the funny thing is, some of the best ginseng in the world comes out from under maple trees in the woods. So, go figure that. Ginseng didn't read that book. It's true.
But most of the time, you don't want to plant it by a tree that has roots close to the surface. You want.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back into using the companion plants. That's part of the assessment of your site, site assessment is the tree type. I mean, you may have to go under a maple tree. Just be aware that it's a heavy surface feeder. I think, like, comparison is hickory. I don't think hickory is a surface feeder at all. And it does grow in the rich woods. So I'm trying to think of the other trees. Holly is tough. There's so many of them.
That's still, I mean, people can definitely, search out more, the trees in their area and what they are. So I think that's a great, thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's all about just looking at the habitat of each plant environment. And the Goldenseal can take more sunlight than ginseng. It can take noticeably more. And I've actually got ginseng that takes more sunlight than. I think the deal with both those is that if it stays cool, like today's in the 70s, I've got it right now. I've got ginseng getting direct sunlight in the middle of the day, and it seems fine. Although if you read all the books, it'll tell you no. But one thing with them, you just have to, whatever. It looks like it's doing fine to me. So, which that is kind of one of the weird things about both those plants is that there's a point between where they're growing really fast where you could actually kill them with excess sunlight. And that's kind of what the whole deal is about, is how much sunlight can they stand. They'll grow faster, but then if you give them too much, it'll do them in. And so I've got certain places like that where I'm seeing the different effects of, the amount of sunlight. And something else too, that in 2007, it was 80 degrees in the day and 50 at night, and then it got down to 17. I think it was in May. And all the trees froze off, and it looked like a nuclear wasteland. And then so what has happened is that was 13 years ago, and the trees are doing what's called mitigation. So red maple in particular, which is unfortunately the most common hardwood tree in the eastern U.S., they are sending out way too much foliage. So that's another site consideration. I've got places on my property, even a west-facing slope, that is in full shade in the afternoon when it should be getting bathed in sunlight. So that's one of my biggest challenges is finding places that aren't 100% shade right now. Although, you know, I've got 3.5 acres, so it's enough to where I'm getting a lot of good growth. So, yeah.
And so the amount of sunlight versus shade, something to consider. So like two years for seedlings, and then you plant them.
Right.
And then how long from there?
Usually I've had some seedlings that I put in a lot of sunlight that even after 4 years, you could go as early as 3 to 4 years under the optimal conditions. But it's more typically 5 years, the harvest. And then there are people that get it certified because they go by alkaloid content with Goldenseal. If you get certified organic and you get it assayed by a laboratory, you can get quite a bit more. I think might be as much as $10 per pound for every alkali point higher of the berberine. So I don't get into that end. I have friends that do that, but that's a route you could go with Goldenseal, where, you know, it's pretty much, I guess that would be value added at that point.
Yeah.
Which, you know, you have to deal with laboratories and things. And I'm mainly just a grower. I don't sell it. I sell to herbalists that do medicinals. But anyways, it's typically 5 years.
5 years.
Although I will say that Goldenseal, with all the excess rain, it's growing extremely fast. It could be, I bet if I put my mind to it, I even have seedlings now. I could get them to look pretty big by 3 years.
Wow.
You can almost harvest 3 to 4 years. Yeah, that's the thing with Goldenseal. And what's one thing, the most important thing about Goldenseal is to not plant it too deep. It's
okay.
You have to plant it the bud can't be more than 1 inch from the surface. I tend to err on the shallow side because that's the quickest way you can kill Goldenseal. If you plant it too deep, it kind of grows like irises. I don't know if you've seen irises where the rhizome is on the surface. I've seen that with wild Goldenseal where the rhizome is literally on the surface and it has the feeder roots going down. I know Janine Davis talks about that in her book. She even says that it's according to your elevation above sea level, how deep you should plant Goldenseal. But you want to err. I always err on the side of shallow. Always shallow with that. And whereas ginseng, you can go a little bit deeper.
Deeper.
And I've had some where I'd like walk along like, holy cow, that plant's above ground. I better put some soil on top, you know.
Just a little sprinkle.
Yeah. So, but it'll survive right on top of the ground, and it prefers that top part of the soil strata. Although, having said that, the tap roots, the feeder roots, can go 3 feet deep. So it's kind of confusing because it's a shallow growing plant, but it has really deep roots. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and something else it'll do too is it's really weird is Goldenseal Seed. Some of it will do. It's called the hypogeal thing, where it'll sprout and it won't go above ground. It'll get all its nutrition from the soil underneath, and then the next year it'll come up. So I have pictures of that where it shows 2 different. One is the seedling, the other one's looks different. They look physically different, but they're from the same seed crop. So that's that little trick. It can grow underground completely for a year. So.
Wow. Is it the root that people use for medicinals?
With Goldenseal, actually.
Or do you use I actually can't remember.
No, there's some of the latest research. I've got some friends that work in that, and they're talking about the whole plant thing, where if you use the leaf and the root together, it's
okay.
And so I'm not sure, where that research is at, but that's, I think, used with several herbs. We're using both. And the funny thing about the leaf is, in Europe, they drink Goldenseal Leaf Tea. But here's the crazy thing: is in the spring, if you pick it, it's real spicy. and pungent. And then if you pick the leaf in the fall, it's very bland tasting. And that has to do with the power, you know, the mojo is going down from the leaf to the root. But I've noticed that very distinctly that, that if you pick that leaf in the spring, it'll be real spicy tasting. It's pretty funny. And that people do harvest that as for a crop, the leaf. A lot of mine is fading out now, so I didn't really get that much. But and it can go dormant in August. Goldenseal can go dormant in August in certain years, and it can grow to October. It's kind of has some years where it grows twice as much as other years. It's a real adaptable plant. And ginseng, it can lay dormant for at least a year, maybe 2 years. So they have all their tricks that they use.
Yeah. I guess that's what you know, they're both very more complex plants to like cultivate and harvest than like maybe your dandelion, where you just sort of, you know, or your like my friend had a bunch of mugwort in her garden, and she was like, I'll just turn it over with the, you know, with a tiller, and guess what? Her whole garden is mugwort now. Like,
that's a common plant.
So, you know, so a little bit different, but also, you know, these plants are really cool. So, you meant, let's, I have a lot here. All right. So there was a question a while back, but I know that, so the question was, do you gather and also leave a certain amount of herbs for the animals? And I know that can be a concern for a lot of people, and I think most herbalists normally take that in consideration, but that was the question, and how do you address that with them?
Yeah, the only wild thing I harvest now is the ginseng tops, which doesn't harm the plant. I don't dig any. The only wild ginseng I dig is my own wild simulated, because I've been planting in the same area for 16, 17 years. So I only plant what I dig, what I've planted. And then, like, I'll give you certain examples. Like, I saw something recently where somebody wanted to buy butterfly weed, and to me, first of all, it grows in really compacted soil, and second of all, you only see 3 or 4 at a time. I have never in my life, in 50 years of herbalism, seen a field of butterfly weed, period. Okay, that to me is wrong. Now, you got mayapple or jewelweed. There's like 20 million acres of jewelweed within a mile of me. I think it's okay to harvest jewelweed. I think so. That, and then mayapple, there's acres of it. Yellow root, acres of it. Okay, but the difference is, a good example would be the pleurisy root or the butterfly weed. That's, to me, that is just, it's such a beautiful flower, and it grows by the railroad tracks. It's like wherever. There's only a couple. But the fact that people are out searching for that in individual clusters, it's like, no, that's not. You gotta make a distinction. You absolutely do. And ginseng, you know, I wouldn't. Well, they got something called minimum viable population, MVP, and I recommend that highly. Read the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Report on ginseng. It's been around quite a few years, but MVP means that there's at least 500 plants there, and it can withstand abuse. And I will say that I know where a few MVP places are. I know where some have been obliterated and some that are just below it. And then I know a lot where they're a long ways off from having minimum viable population. So, you know, it's, and I will recommend the new book, the Ginseng book it's from, oh God, what's the guy's name? It just came out. McGraw. It's by somebody named McGraw. That's it.
see. Do you we can jump into books, but I think you had a few that you wanted to show us. Did you want to?
Oh yeah, well, my best ones I couldn't find. The one is of course Janine Davis's and Scott Person's book.
Yeah. Well, let me give me a I have that. Hold on. I'm gonna put up a link to that one. It's growing and marketing ginseng and Goldenseal and other woodland medicinals. So yeah, I'm gonna put up a link in the chat. This is if you guys are interested in, you know, some more. Wait, it'll go up. Yeah. Here's the name of it. And it's by Janine Davis, who we've been talking about. And let's see. Scott Persons, I think that's what it is. Okay. So this is the name of it, and
yeah, I see it in a lot of stores too. It's pretty widely available. I mean, I've seen it around.
And that's a good one.
Would be by Rico Chetch. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. It's growing at risk and medicinal plants. That's been around quite a while.
At-risk medicinal herbs?
Yeah, I believe that's it.
Oh, okay.
That's an outstanding book. He really influenced me in the Goldenseal realm a lot. To start with seed, I guess, and I think the biggest Goldenseal farm in the U.S. is in Oregon anyway. It's 11 acres, so they're really into it out there. But that book is outstanding.
Okay. So this is this one, growing at-risk medicinal herbs, and I'm gonna post a link to that. It's like, well, this one's 24 on Amazon, but it's really strange. I don't know if it'll let me post a link because this link is really long, but so
copy that somewhere. I couldn't find it.
See, yeah, it does actually. It does. No, it does not. Okay. I think the link is a little wacky. So,
yeah.
But everyone looks up the title of that. So yeah, if you guys want to look into, you know, also I've got the video series that Benjamin did, which will help sort of add a little more of a visual aspect to some of the things we've been talking about. And then there's also the United Plant Savers.
That's right. Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
There's a Goldenseal Sanctuary. Anyway,
that's in Ohio. Yeah.
It's in Ohio. It's gorgeous. I'm going to. It's Botanical Sanctuary. And I'll post a link for that too, so everyone can have that information. And yeah, it's the United Plant Savers, and they have a whole bunch of information on forest farming and everything else. So
yeah. I will say that I have gotten off of a lot of those sites that involved people were talking about wild harvesting, and I just got off of them because I just didn't want to be involved in any discussion with it, you know. So I was, you know, like on the Ginseng Daters group and all that junk, but I pretty much felt like it would be better for me not to be in that discussion because, you know, I might say something I regret or something. I don't know what it was, but and I am against, you know, Canada banned the export of wild ginseng in the 1980s. And I know they won't do it in this country. I've met the head biologist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They're in charge of it. I mean, you know, they're gonna certify it. Every root is 5 years old, and that's it. And then, although the market this year supposedly, because of COVID, there might not be a market for ginseng this year. It's going to be interesting.
Oh, wow.
That would really be. See, historically, ginseng caught a break during World War II when shipping was interrupted. That's what happens with ginseng is the TV shows heard it. Those horrible TV shows that came on whenever they really hammered it bad. Now it's coming back from that. But if you look at the history, as a matter of fact, ginseng was exterminated from Canada in the 1700s. It was wiped out in the 1700s almost in Canada,
Wow.
the entire country almost. So, I mean, it's a survival story.
Yeah. I mean, part of the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You know, part of the reason these plants are, I don't know, there's, you know, they take a long time to grow. They're highly medicinal, and you know, there's just they grow in very specific places. So I think it's just this plant has a very these plants both have a very complicated history, and there's a lot of drama, as you can see, still ongoing. So it's something to keep in mind as you sort of delve into them. But all right, we're gonna shift gears a little bit and talk about two things. One, this question of stewardship, and what is good stewardship? How can somebody, you know, be a good steward to these plants? I guess it actually connects in with what we're talking about pretty good.
Say that again. Some of your volume just went down.
Oh, okay. So we're sort of talking about in a roundabout way about stewardship, and how could one be like a good steward to these plants, you know, and yeah.
Your volume got low.
Is it too low?
Your volume got low all of a sudden.
My volume got low?
Yeah. Could be my phone. My phone rang, so unfortunately I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay. So you might have to. You might have to.
I can hear you. It's just really low.
Could you up the volume again? Maybe
that's the thing.
It's
not. It's weird. It's just. It's crazy.
Oh, now you took it off. I can't hear you now. Well, now I can't hear you. Hold on. Nope. Can't unmute. I can't hear it now.
How about now? You can hear me.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. It's good enough. You're lower, but I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So, tell us about, you have a little project going on where you are helping ginseng seeds adapt to climate change.
Right.
So you give us, just tell us a little bit about that, because climate change is definitely, you know, something that we are all experiencing in quite a large way.
Yeah. What I'm doing is there's actually two varieties of ginseng. There's a northern and a southern variety, and the big difference is that the northern variety has the flower stalk upon emergence, and the southern variety waits 3 weeks to a month to get the flower stalk. And I was even noticing the other day, like for instance, the seeds that I was harvesting in the wild, not harvesting, but planting, were much smaller than the ones I bought from Wisconsin. So they were literally like half the size. So, and I've heard other people talk about that, about how, and also ginseng in the woods, in the wild, is struggling to the pollination rate is really horrible. Only about 25% of the flowers are actually producing fruit. So it's kind of like it could be that I'm fighting a rising tide. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
because the wild ginseng is absolutely, I've got tons of photos from this year. You have a big plant that should have had 30 berries. It only has 3. And you can see the empty stalks where there was supposed to be a berry. There's nothing there. It's so it's a daunting task for me because the wild ginseng is really, I mean, I have planted about 500 seeds in the wild, but if things had been right, I would have planted thousands. If those had all pollinated like they're supposed to, I would have planted thousands. But, you know, I still planted 500, but that's just because I went to so many plants. They were, I would say the most I've gotten, the most berries would be a dozen off a wild plant. And it used to be back in the 1970s, you could get 45 berries off a plant. So, so what am I trying to do? I'm trying to see, I think all the commercial ginseng that people buy to plant is all northern, and the seed stalk may come up upon emergence. And then you got the southern kind, which is not commercially available, but that's what grows here. And that's what I have because it was already growing here. So it's just a matter of getting those sorted out, crossbreeding or seeing which is better. Yeah, and there's also a difference in the stalk color. I think one's supposed to be purple and one is green on those different varieties, but that's still, I still wonder about that. So that's basically what it involves, is getting everything sorted out. And I've been spraying religiously with liquid copper, which is organic, because I feel like to have a seed breeding program, I've got to really keep the plants in top condition. And, you know, in the previous years, I didn't spray as much. And this year I sprayed faithfully and everything looks good. So that's setting me up for, you know, a long haul. I'm 64 years old. So, you know, I'll probably have to live to be 90 to pull it off, but who knows? Right. I mean, so it's a little late for me to start, but I got a good running start. Because it is very slow. I mean, it takes a year and a half for the seed to germinate. It can take as long as 2.5 years, or it can take as little as 6 months. So, and that's another little sort of side project to that is, if ginseng seed ripens in early July, 50% of it should germinate the following spring instead of waiting another year. So that's something that I've sort of had luck with that. And, but it's kind of one of those things where you just keep chasing it. And, you know, maybe potentially the person could breed a variety that all the seeds would sprout after 6 months. That would be ideal. I mean, you know, so there's all those little different particularities about ginseng that, you know, a person would have to get sorted out and use them for the betterment of it. But yeah, based on what I'm seeing in the wild, though, I don't know what's causing it. No, you know what it is? Matter of fact, we have a lot of beekeepers around here, and it's a known fact that during extremely rainy years that they don't do well with their honey. So it could just simply be that that it rained so much that the pollinating insects didn't get to the ginseng flowers. That's entirely possible. It's that. I hope it's only that, because that means that if we had a drier year, they would do better.
But it definitely sounds like, you know, what you described from the 70s till now, that there's been just a dramatic difference. And you'd think that that like we would have some drier years in there, you know, and some wetter years. And it does seem like it's, I mean, it was super wet this year, which is very unusual. So I feel like it sounds like overall, you know, the berries are happening less often. And
absolutely, yeah. Matter of fact, I can't count the adult. Something else with ginseng that I've been finding a number of 3-prong, nice, healthy, big, and they're overcome with vegetation, and they're getting rotten vegetation, which isn't a disease. It's just simply rotten vegetation. And see, it used to be that ginseng would turn yellow. It has that classic yellow color, and you could see it from a mile away. Now the ginseng is turning brown and mushy, and what they call that senescence. It's senescing in a different way than it used to. And so, but here's the thing: those ones I find in the bushes, they're tangled with wild beans. And I've walked by it for a while. It's like, oh my God, I didn't know that was there. Well, the thing is, the reason I didn't know it was there is because it didn't have any berries at all. big. There are
Oh,
plenty of big mature plants. They have nothing, no berries. And then you get lucky, you may see 3, 4, 5, up to 12 on them. But it's astonishing the number of adult plants I found in the woods with absolutely no berries whatsoever. So, I will say I'm optimistic about wild ginseng after what I've seen recently, but at the same time, the berry thing is rough. That's got to get better. So
yeah.
we'll see next year. I mean, it's just year to year. I think last year, this berries are probably better than they were last year, so it seems to be a little bit better. But anyways,
And then hopefully what your maybe one of your like the experiments you're doing will yield just a stronger plant that will
yeah, that's what I'm
and,
shooting for.
I'm sure, and hopefully, I mean, going forward in the future, I know there's a lot of people interested in these plants, and I'm sure there'd be somebody that would love to help you with that
Yeah,
work.
I've met
So
one young man. I didn't meet him over the internet, but he's in Kentucky, Marcus Stidham, and he's really sharp about. He's helped me with certain stuff, but there are people that are really interested in it like that, and so that's kind of the one thing about herbalism is that around where I live, I don't have any herbalists immediately in the area. They're all mostly in Asheville, so it's just a matter of finding somebody to talk shop with. I mean,
yeah, I mean, well, we got the internet now, so that's
well, that's true.
that
Yeah,
that 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 does help. That does help out, and I'm sure the pandemic hasn't helped either, because
right,
we're all like trying to be as social distance as possible. So
right.
But I'm sure it sounds beautiful where you are. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd love to come out one day myself, and
yeah. Definitely should come
and
for a visit. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely. And
I'm just about 110 miles from Asheville, 100
yeah,
miles or so, something like that.
well, it definitely wouldn't be for
Yeah,
for a little bit, and it would probably, but yeah, it's a little bit of a journey, but
right.
that's
Yeah, I try to
okay.
get to Asheville once in a while, but I haven't been there too much. I dropped my son off at Warren Wilson. That was the last time I was there. So hmm. I thought about
Yeah,
seeing if they do anything at Warren Wilson with ginseng and Goldenseal. So if I can get my
I
son, he's kind of interested, but he's kind of rebelling too. So, but
uh, they
you know,
I know that they used to have an herb crew. One of my friends got interested in herbalism through that, and so like they have the work, sort of the work crews, and
right?
they do grow medicinal herbs. So it
Huh?
is very possible that they're growing
That's interesting. Yeah.
ginseng and golden seal there. So
Yeah, I'd be
um,
glad to donate some golden seal to them. Donate some plant material. I walked
I,
around the campus. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I'm sure that they would be interested to speak with you about it. I mean, especially if they still have
Yeah. I'll
the
have to.
medicinal herb program.
Matter of fact, if I might even Zoom with my son tonight if I can get him to get on there. We're having a big family Zoom. So,
Oh, that's
anyways,
cool.
yeah. I can't think of one the next time I'll get over to Asheville. I don't have any immediate plans, but it'd be nice to get over there one day soon. But, anyways,
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. It might be like, well, it'd definitely be after COVID, but come out there and bring my camera, and we can talk some more. That would be
yeah.
cool.
Actually, a real pretty time is in the spring is when the golden seal blooms. It's really beautiful.
Oh,
When is that? That's probably late March, or I guess my next one is March 12th or something.
I think so. That's right. We're, so Benjamin, we have a second slot for him to come on. So I think it is, I don't have it up.
I'm trying to think of what will be growing by then. The golden seal probably will be coming up by then.
We can always move it, but
Yeah, a little later in the year might be good because it would be.
let's see. I'm going to get up the list
Yeah.
of when we had you down for a second. Yeah, it was the 2nd of March, so that's a little bit early.
Yeah.
So we might move it.
Yeah.
You know, just I guess when it gets close
Yeah, I
to
think
March.
probably 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks would make a big difference for
Okay.
what would be emerging, you know.
So I mean, we can so we can move that, but
Okay.
so that like you can just I don't think I have anything. Go back to that list. Let me see. Yeah, so there's nobody after the 2nd of March on the interview
Right.
schedule.
Okay.
So, you know, we can definitely move it. And
Yeah. A couple weeks even might. What I can do is I'll look at my photographs because I've got the, you know, how they all have the dates on them. I can go back and look and see. I'm pretty sure it's March, April. Yeah, I'll have to look when Goldenseal flower starts flowering. But
and then if some reason the you know, and then like I said, after COVID, at some point we can I can come out and you know, and
yeah,
that'd be
that's
cool.
kind of the time of year, March 2nd. That's in the years when I've
Exactly.
divided Goldenseal, because you know you do the rhizome cuttings, and which I plan to do all winter. That's the time of year when you have to start hurrying because it's starting to sprout a little bit, and you want to get it all in the ground. So I can't quite remember, but that's kind of a transitional time of year because Goldenseal definitely comes up before Ginseng. There's no doubt about that. So I'll just have to focus in on when that is exactly. So
We got a little bit of time.
yeah.
So
There you go.
yeah, you know, we'll just keep an eye on it and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So let's see. I think that was all. You know, most of the questions we covered quite a
Okay.
lot. Besides, like, I know we talked about the books. Do you have any other like suggestions for people that maybe want to learn more about these plants and
Yeah,
you know?
it's you know, the funny thing is I've learned a lot just hanging out at farmers markets. Just look for old people at farmers markets. It's just crazy the stuff I've learned. It's
All right.
there's one farmer around here and he said he had family, this is vegetable garden, but he had family heirloom seeds for over 100 years. And he taught me stuff, again, not in the book, not
Wow.
there. And I spent 15 minutes with him, but I knew what to ask. You know, you got to be curious. So, but of course, I don't know. I guess they're farmers market. There's the one still going here. Are they having that in Asheville? It's still going on, isn't it?
I'm not sure if
Yeah.
our farmers
Anyways,
markets
that's
are still
one
going
place.
on. But you know, I'm it's a good thing for everyone to keep in mind when we're having them again. I saw some posts for like holiday markets, so
Yeah.
perhaps you know people are still going to have it.
Right.
That's something I wouldn't have thought of. You know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, and just you know, like being part of United Plant Savers is good, and just different herb, you know, the herb groups on the internet, which of course there are a million of them now. There's all kinds of groups like that, and like I said, I did kind of get out of some of those that were leaning more toward the wild harvesting. And I'm not against wild harvest. It just has to be done right. I mean, you know, certain plants shouldn't be wild harvested. So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, just walk in the woods and just take pictures of stuff. And that's the great thing now is you can take your cell phone in the woods and just take a picture and send it to somebody who might know what it is. I've had really good luck with that. I have relatives in Raleigh, and they're friends with all kinds of botany professors and stuff. So I just send the pictures over there and have the Geek Squad look at them. But,
and then if anyone out there, you know, you could always like send it to me, and I could send it to Benjamin. He can send it to his plant geek friends. I mean, you get a bunch of herbalists together, and they just want to talk about plants, and they love doing that. So, you know, I mean,
yeah, I mean, somebody wants to friend me just to talk about herbs, that's fine. You know, I don't mind that. I mean, I love to talk about herbs. So
Yeah, and part of the reason I'm doing these interviews is to talk about herbs.
as crazy as Facebook is too, that's one of the few sane things on Facebook. I mean, it's getting pretty nutty now. So
yeah, definitely. There's a lot of
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff going on. You know, and all in all, it might be really good to get out in the woods and just sort of hang out with the plants as much as possible. So,
yeah.
All right. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
I can't think of anything. Just I would just say right now, just recommend go hiking. The woods are really amazing right now. One plant that's going to come out that just is fun to look at is the closed gentian that grows along log roads and like in clearings. And then I know we've got tons of cardinal flower around here. I've had the thought that I've got some growing right by my mailbox just to try and pick the seeds after they're mature and try and sprout the seeds of cardinal flower, which I know is protected in many, many states. So anyways, yeah, it's just a great time of year to be hiking.
Yeah, there's a lot, you know, and just driving down the road, there's Goldenseal, not gold, sorry.
Goldenrod.
There's
Right,
goldenrod, and my friend Heather, who's in chat, says she loves cardinal flower. So hello, Heather. Hello, Patrice. Hello, everyone who has popped in that you know. So, but I'm gonna have to look that one up. I'm sure I've seen it, but I'm not, you know,
right.
You know, connected it with its because there's just so much plants right now. And then, you know, you could see a little bit of the last of the mullein, the big stalks, but they're pretty much kind of gone. So
I saw something the other day that I'd never seen much of, is the Clintonia. It's got it's called blue bead lily, and the berries are poisonous, and some creature had eaten them, even though they're poisonous. They'd eaten some of them, but they come up. It looks just like ginseng. It has the umbel, and the berries are blue. And that was grown in a really rich area of the woods. And I've taken photographs of plants in the past day or two that I don't have a clue. It's like, what in God's name are these? It's just, you know. So that's the fun thing, is you can save that for wintertime. You take the pictures, then you spend all winter trying to figure out what they are.
Maybe because
it's
been so wet, we've had mushrooms just pop up everywhere, and
they're great, yeah.
By me, and I've never seen that before. Just like, you know, I mean, so maybe that's why things are just happening that's maybe normal.
Yeah, I've noticed. I think they were even on my driveway. I noticed chanterelles right on my driveway, which is pretty unusual.
Wow.
We don't. That's the thing about, like, with chanterelles, the footprint of where they grow varies from year to year. There's some years they just grow more places than others. I think this is one of those years where they're just growing almost everywhere. And then I picked a honey mushroom the other day. That was good. And then there's the spiraceus, the noodle mushroom. I picked one time. It was as big as almost needed to put it in a laundry basket. It was huge.
Wow.
And then I keep finding oyster mushrooms, but they're never enough to make a meal. They're tiny. Those grow on standing dead trees.
Pretty sure all the mushrooms I've seen in people's yards, I don't know what they are, so I'm not gonna. I'm pretty sure they're unedible.
Right.
Heather is asking, do you post your plant pictures on your Facebook, or do you have an Instagram? So
I have Instagram, but I haven't used it much. I do. Actually, you know what I've been doing a lot is posting them on United Plant Savers, just for discretion's sake.
So Heather, the United Plant Savers link is in the chat. And is that just sort of, do you just search for a plant and you can? I really haven't.
It may just come up when you go to the website. They kind of have like a scroll. You scroll down. And...
Yeah. Resources. Yeah, there's a video gallery. Anyway, I'm sure I'll have time later to look at it.
I could probably I've heard Instagram is less annoying than Facebook, so I could, theoretically, I have Instagram. I could go back to Instagram.
No pressure.
Yeah.
But
I love to share things.
Instagram is very easy, especially, one of the annoying, if you take all your pictures on your phone, it's easy. It's like, I wish it also had like a desktop like functionality to it, but you can only look at it on the desktop. But yeah,
right.
It's real easy to, you probably know, it's just, you just pop it up there. And and Instagram. Yeah, I like Instagram. I find it.
I'll have it. I'll revive it. I've got it somewhere in my phone, I know. So I might do that. And I think that involves more just pictures and less just talking, right? It's mostly just pictures.
It's mostly pictures. I mean, people can comment and you can like tag stuff, but you don't have, it's different.
Right. I had it in the past. I had it and I kind of lost interest, but I'll get back into it because it sounds good. Yeah, I've been taking tons of just crazy pictures lately. So really cool stuff. So it'd be fun to share it.
Yeah. I think a lot of us would love to see, well,
of course, it just occurred to me that I could share them on your website.
Heather found, no, that's a. I'm sorry.
What about on your website there? That's or not your website, your Facebook page. I'm drawing a blank. What's Stories from the Earth? Pictures can be shared on that, right?
Yes. So yeah, you can share some pictures on that, and I can, I've got the links and everything. So that would be great. I would just have to look. I'll have to dig a little deeper into the United Plant Savers. If you say they're up there, then I'm sure they're up there on that resource.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they format that. I'm not sure about that.
So Heather says thank you.
Okay, well, I'm glad to share.
My friend Heather gardens, and she's just really into plants and stuff like that. So anyway, that's all right. So I'm gonna wrap up and just hang out and then I'll go Heather shared the United Plant Savers Instagram link. Apparently,
cool.
It has an Instagram, so maybe they're up there.
Okay.
So after I go off from the live, just hang out and we'll wrap up separately. So I just wanted to let you know that because I forgot to tell you that beforehand. All right. So thank you so much for chatting with us for about these plants, ginseng and goldenseal, and all of your awesome knowledge and stories, and so I really appreciate it, and looking forward to in March revisiting and getting to learn more about the whole process of growing these plants. All right, so, and I want to thank everyone for joining me today live, and also in the future. We have a Stories from the Earth has a Facebook group. If you're interested in either like coming on as a guest, if you're an herbalist or just like a plant enthusiast or a student of herbalism, come on. If you just want to chat about herbs and plants and that's what this is for. And so, you know, follow us on Facebook. You can contact me, let me know. Yeah, so next interview is the 29th, and I think that's going to be at 12 p.m., a little earlier because I'll be working. So all right, so I hope everyone has a good day, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them on the Facebook group, or you know, in the description, in the comments here on YouTube. So, and then yeah, so okay guys, so next time, bye.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.